Hello all and welcome to another episode of this micro series on self-preparation module of UPSC Civil Service exam, and of course it is helpful for other exams as well. So in this episode I'll be talking about what is detailed application form and commonly known as DAF, and while you fill it in the process of your UPSC uh, process, the whole process, you have to fill this form, and it is something like a resume, it is something like a CV, and it is not much different from that. And there is a standard format which UPSC gives for this, and then why it is important. So the first point in this episode I want to discuss is that if it's so basic, why it is relevant, why we are discussing it here, why is it so relevant. Now you must understand that this is the like a biodata which the UPSC is taking of the candidate, and you will see that there are a lot of details about you which are entered and about you in this DAF, and based on that, when you appear for the interview, the members will be having some kind of a sheet, and which is based on this whatever you have entered in your detailed application form. So that is of course very relevant before even you enter for the interview. What is there with the panel is your reflection of your DAF, and that is why filling DAF, not just filling, it's just not just about filling, it's just preparing to fill the DAF is very important, because it's a time taking process. So it is very similar to when I talked about personality development. So I have taken a separate detailed video on personality development, especially for aspirants. Please check that out on my channel. I will leave the link in the description, and we discussed there as well that there is no magic formula for personality. It takes time, you have to put in effort, a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of years into it, and then only you get the result. So here also, right before appearing the exam, right when the time comes to fill the DAF, you cannot work on all those things. So it is a gradual process, and that is why we are discussing it, that for those of you who are still thinking about appearing, who are still studying in graduation, who are still studying in school, so for them, if this clarity comes beforehand, it is very beneficial. So that is the whole point of this episode. And so why relevant? It is because it gives an edge to you when you go for the interview, and if you are mentioning the right things, you can basically have a guided kind of interview. Other way around is basically, let's suppose you are just fresh graduate, in fact you're in the final year, you just graduated, and you prepared well and you cleared your mains, and then you have appeared for your interview. So now you don't have any work experience, you don't have any extracurricular activities in your school time, in your college time, you have just been studying, and so basically there is not much to mention on your DAF, on your CV, on your resume. There isn't much. So in that case, when there is a blank DAF, that means nothing much is there for the interviewer to see and ask questions on. Then imagine what will happen. Then random questions will come, and that becomes kind of a tricky interview. And imagine the other way around, that somebody has very good extracurricular activities while he or she was in school, and captaining the school team and being the president of certain committees, etc., always having those leadership qualities in school time, in college time, in your work experience, and also having work experience, also having voluntary experience in social sector, doing a lot of social service. So if somebody has all those on the DAF, or somebody has done all that, so it's a great advantage. Of course it is also a confidence booster, but at the same time it's a big plus when you go for the interview. So the point here I want to make is that if it's a blank CV, nothing much. So we also, at the district level, we also take a lot of interviews. So when we see the resume, If there is a lot of interesting things in the resume, then of course you are compelled to ask questions about those interesting facts which are mentioned in the resume. So you have to think like interviewer. Now interviewer, these boards, these panels, they are taking so hundreds of interview, constantly they are taking these interviews, so they are literally bored of the generic stuff. So if they see something interesting, they would want to ask question, because it will be different, it will be different from that normal standard questions. But if nothing is there in the DAF, and it's a very generic DAF, then random questions, and the probability then that you will be knowing the answers to those random questions, that's something, it's very tricky, and you should not take those chances. So how to drive interviews, I have also done a separate video on interview skills, and you can see that on my channel. And the crux of it is, if you have a basically DAF which is full of details, and which is full of interesting facts and figures, and so most of your questions will be based on that. So blank DF will invite random questions. I will give my example from the UPSC interview, because I was already working in IRS at that time, and before that ITBP, and before that I was working with a coaching center in Delhi, and before that I was working with Deloitte Consulting for 2 years, and before that IIT Kharagpur. So there was a lot of things where questions can be framed, and that is exactly what happened in the interview. So most of the questions which were asked were based on these, my tenures, my work experience, my educational qualification. So of course, when questions are asked on all these things, you are very much comfortable, and you can answer well, because you literally know everything about it, and you keep on getting that confidence grows one question after another. So that this is what you have to understand, that don't leave your DAF blank. And that is why this whole episode of how we can improve, the subject here is improving your DAF. It is not about filling. Of course you can fill it on your own, but how while you are deciding to prepare, while you are still in college, while you are still in school, how you can improve the possibility of your DAF. So this is what the crux of this episode is. So I hope you have understood this fact, and you will start working on making your DAF impressive. Now if you go through that model DAF, if you just Google UPSC Civil Service DAF format, you can get a sample. There are a lot of sites which have uploaded sample DAF, and if you go through that, it's a big form, 8-9 pages. So in that, of course, basic information about you and your address and all those things are there, education qualification, work experience. It also talks about certain interesting things, like what prizes you have won while your school or college or otherwise, medals, which sports you have been good at, leadership roles. So all these things are basically symbols. They represent something unique about you. They tell a story, and they can be used as reinforcements when you present your argument. Now, why these are important? So when you participate in some kind of competitions at school level, at college, etc., and you are winning, so that winning mentality, the desire to compete, the desire to win, the desire to work hard, the commitment, all those values are seen in that. So obviously, if somebody in school, if you see he or she has won a lot of prizes in a lot of activities, always active in all the kind of extracurricular activities, then what kind of impression does that give? That person has been very active, is very interested, very committed, energetic, and the enthusiasm is just showing across all domains. So it's a very good impression, and that will also talk about your personality, and it will really keep you very among the high rankers when it comes to the interview marks. So that is why all these things are important. They represent that your good work, they represent your commitment, they represent your hard work, and they represent your enthusiasm. So all these things are important. Leadership roles. So of course, when you're appearing for civil services, the UPSC, what are they looking for? They are looking for leaders. They are looking for people who are committed. They are looking for people who can make decisions, who can take decisions, who are passionate about public service. So if you have some examples to exhibit that, see, interview is what, of course, 25 minutes, 30 minutes, and it's very difficult to judge a personality through those questions which are asked. So all these things, your past, your achievements, when you have showed some leadership quality, when in a real life scenario you have showed some exemplary bravery, courage, etc. So all those things are essentially testimony to your commitment and your desire to become a civil servant. So that is why these all things are important. Now sports, if you generally when we see a sports person, you will see that if somebody is really into sport, that person will be really very active and active in everything. It will become a part of the personality. So that is what you have to understand, that sports, they say sports makes character, brings character. And when you are playing some kind of a sport, then that team spirit, working in team, working like individual will not work. So it's all about team, right? So if somebody is a sports person, you can see that he or she will have a totally different personality than somebody who is not, somebody who has never played a sport. And the kind of energy levels which will be there, it's just, you cannot miss that, even if you are seeing that person for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So in the interview, even if it's not written in the DAF, you can really tell, this person, okay, he is an active person, he's a fit person, he must be some part of some sports activities. So that is why all these things are very, very important. So when you leave them blank, that shows that in the past there hasn't been much, and you haven't been actively involved in all these things. So that's not a very good sign. So all these things, please, when you fill whatever you have, and you must fill that. And that is why this episode has to be taken as a heads up. Like if you have ever thought about preparing for UPSC, and forget UPSC, actually this is about in general, because if you go for any job, basically what they ask for is your resume, your curriculum vitae. And if it's very good, if it has all these things, then it makes a really good first impression. And if you can build on that first impression which your CV has created in the interview, if you can build on that, success will be yours. So that is why this is very, very important, and that is why starting early is very, very important. So once you realize the importance of all these things, then you will immediately start working on it, so that ultimately when the time comes, you can mention all those things in your CV. So now what another very important point I want to mention is that your DAF should show some kind of direction where you are going really, and it should be like a statement of purpose. So now one of the common questions in a UPSC interview, why you want to become a civil servant. Now there are cliche, mostly people give those cliche answer, I want to work for the people. Now if you want to work for the people, what have you done till now for the people? Or you're just waiting to clear UPSC? If you clear UPSC, you'll work for the people. If you don't clear, then you'll not work for the people. Is that so? So that is a follow-up question. So if you have something on your DAF which shows a direction, okay, since the realization happened that you want to help the people, you want to work for the people, simultaneously you have also done something for the people. So we'll come to that, how to build on that. But if your CV is already showing that you have some kind of commitment, for example, you have studied rural development, you have studied public policy, you have volunteered for Teach for India, you have volunteered for some kind of all these kind of social sector programs and schemes, you have help some kind of community by inventing something, by working along with them, by improving some kind of existing business model or something like that. So if you've done something in that direction, it's excellent. It shows a direction that you really know where you are going, that you really know that public service is basically the thing for you, and even while you were preparing, basically you have done some kind of public service. So that kind of direction, if it is seen in the DAF, that will reinforce basically your cliched answer, because everyone gives that answer. But if you don't have some kind of credentials to basically testify that you want to be in public service, you want to really help the people, and you have already done through various activities, through various your participations in various voluntary works, that shows your commitment, and then your claim becomes believable. So this is what you must understand, that this direction you are heading, you have already decided that public service is the field you want to be in, and your DAF basically should reflect that, should testify for that, and that by reading your DAF, the people who are reading the DAF, the resume, they should be assured that okay, this guy or this girl is committed to public service. He or she has already done so much, so that helps big time. So that is why this direction should be visible. Now few advice I want to give to the aspirants, that while you prepare, so it's a long time, and especially for UPSC, it takes a long time, and a couple of years at least, and there is a lot of time, and it's a good opportunity to do certain things. For example, if you are taking optional which you have not graduated in, so it makes sense that while you prepare, you may as well enroll for some kind of distance course. For example, when I was in Delhi, and I really loved public administration, so I had selected public administration, and in fact I was teaching also. While I was giving the attempts, I was part of that teaching also in public administration. I was checking the answer scripts of other aspirants and stuff like that, so it really helped. So I simultaneously thought, okay, let me enroll in the MA program in public administration in IGNOU, and in Delhi it's really convenient. So while I prepared in Delhi for those 2 years in 2011-12, I simultaneously completed my MA in public administration. So that was an added thing, and of course it helps because it's your optional, so it will help and it looks good on the CV as well. So my advice would be, while preparing you can do all those things. It need not be your optional, it can be some other thing which is relevant or which is of your interest, which will help you to grow your knowledge, your personality and everything. So while preparation, these kind of distance courses can also be explored. They will immensely help to improve your DAF, your resume. Now, while you are, especially while you are at graduation, so when we are in college, when we are in school, we usually have a lot of time, and it's a great time when you can really explore into this field, voluntary activities, social work, NSS, it can be anything. There are so many things. If you are interested in education, then Teach for India. If you are interested in rural development, you can do something, going to a village, adopting a village, working with them, in agriculture, in livelihood promotion. There are so many things you can do. So whatever interests you, if you are eventually, so all this is with the assumption that you are going to write civils and you are interested in public service. So while you have already realized this in your school time and in your grad time, so then it makes perfect sense. In fact, it will be really great if you can, you should rather volunteer and involve yourself with all these things, so that, coming to the point where we're talking about direction and statement of purpose. So your basically that DAF, as I said, should show the direction in which your career is going, where you have committed yourself. It should be a statement of purpose, that by seeing your work experience, by seeing your whatever voluntary works, whatever social work you have already done during your grad, during your prep, during your school days. So that should be a testimony of your commitment to public service. This all will reinforce this direction. This all will tell the statement of purpose, that basically you are not just fooling around, you are not going after the whole pride associated with the service. You are really into it, and in fact all these things also clear your mind a lot when there's isn't much clarity what exactly is civil service. So in the first episode I have talked about what is civil service and stuff like that. So when you volunteer yourself, when you involve in yourself in social work, when you work with the government agencies, you get more clarity on what administration is and what will be your role when you actually join these institutions. So that is also why it gives you a lot of clarity. Also, apart from improving your DAF, it will give you a lot of clarity from the field. In fact, it will give you a lot of pointers for general studies as well, and it will help you a lot in your GS papers. It will help you a lot especially in your ethics paper. So in the last video we talked about in approach to mains, ethics is all about what scenarios and all these kind of situations and decision making and stuff like that. So when you are in the field, when you have seen that, when you have worked, so it becomes easy for you to deal with all these questions. So whenever you have time, if you are still in school, wonderful, you have a lot of time, so you should volunteer more for the causes you really feel for. So it's not really a one frame fits everyone formula that everyone should go and join Teach for India. You may be compassionate about something else. You may be want to work with rural development. You may want to work on agriculture, on introducing technology, making some app, working for the person with disabilities. It can be anything. So whatever moves you, whatever makes you click, just go for it. Volunteer, learn. Of course, the community will greatly benefit from it. You will greatly benefit from it. Your horizon will change. Your whole worldview will change, and your personality will develop, and all those things. Your DAF will definitely develop. So all these things are there. So please volunteer and do some social work while you can. So because once you start your preparation, this part will be a little difficult, because the kind of commitment which you have to give for preparation, for reading, for revising and all those things, so it becomes difficult. And plus we have already talked about, while preparing you should also do distance courses, so you'll be a lot busy once you start your preparation. So before that, in your school days, in your college days, this will really help. And of course, you can do while preparing also, because if you 24/7 if you do preparation, you will burn out yourself. So once in a while, take a break, go to a school, teach for free, teach the children in rural areas. There's so many things which you can do in your locality. So now next point, very important point. So in the DAF, it also asks obviously about work experience. So as I gave the example of a freshly graduate student going to give interviews, so now there is no work experience, and it becomes, of course it's difficult, but of course it's a good thing that you have the advantage of age perhaps, but at the same time, the work experience is also very, very important. And as I said, it will move your the interview in the way you are comfortable in. That is the first thing. But otherwise also, I have felt that in this service, particularly in the IAS, if you have some kind of a previous work experience in the of course in the public sector, private sector, or so it is both. If you have the experience in both the fields, it's very good. And I feel really fortunate to have experienced the private sector when I worked in Deloitte Consulting for 2 years. Then I also taught in a coaching. Then I was in the armed forces, ITBP, then also Indian Revenue Service. So mixed experience, and all that. Of course, one thing is that you understand so many spheres, and when you come to the IAS, which is more like a generalist service, so it helps. All those experiences do help, and so whatever work experience you can gain, see, it need not be a full-time work, basically need not be a government service, need not be a private service. It can be some kind of an internship, it can be some kind of a voluntary work, it can be something, some or the other, whenever you get this opportunity, because it's very, very important. Because reading about teamwork, reading about leadership is one thing, but when it actually comes to application, there is the only way to learn is experience. So when you first start working in an organization, you will understand what all those thinkers, management thinkers, what Henry Fayol was talking about, all those thinkers, how they have made this principle, that all principle will, when they come in application, then only you actually understand them. So work experience is very, very important. So whenever you have the opportunity to get some work experience before you appear for your interview, before you appear for civils, it's a very good idea, and you should go ahead and do that. So yeah, so one column is also on the hobbies. What are your hobbies? Now, of course, some people simply because they don't have any hobbies, they just write listening to songs and stuff like that. But of course, I mean, one can be a music fan and one can be into music. But listening songs is something which I would say is that who doesn't listen to songs? So mostly people do listen to songs. It's no, I mean, there's nothing wrong in having that hobby, but apart from that, I would advise, if you ask me, I would advise you that also mention some of the constructive hobbies which will help to build your personality, which are helpful in the service. And in fact, not just for mentioning sake, you should have all those all those hobbies should be there. For example, I feel everyone should read. Reading good books, reading about books about India, about biographies, autobiographies, about inspiring stories, all these things are very, very important for your personality development, very, very important for concentration development, and very, very important for developing that focus. And books, I feel, really help in that direction. So reading is one. Sports is another amazing hobby. But one thing you have to be very, very careful about is that don't try to bluff, because the people who are sitting, they are mostly retired public servants with an experience of 30 years, 35 years, 40 years, and there is no way you're gonna fool them. So some people just, because at the last moment of filling that gap, they say, okay, I don't have any hobby, I just randomly write something. If you write, for example, football is my hobby, then if they ask you some basic questions, then who won the last World Cup, who is basically, what is the position of India in this sport? And if you don't seem to know these basic questions, then what eventually would be the inference from that is that you have lied in your DAF, and then the other points which are there will also lose steam. So this is what you have to must. This is very important. So I am talking about improving resume, but that doesn't mean that you should randomly write things to look more impressive. It has to be there. It has to be what you already have done, and it has to be true. And you should never lie on your CV, resume, and exaggerate things. It should be what you have achieved. That is why I am giving this video as a heads up to those who have just thought about preparing, that you should get involved in all these things, because it takes time. For example, like similar to your personality development, it takes time. CV development also takes time. So it has to be authentic. It has to be authentic because there will be, of course, vetting, and they will come to know through the questions they will ask. If you are trying to bluff, they will definitely come to know. So hobbies are very, very important. You can have, it's a very subjective thing. Of course, I cannot tell you what hobbies to have, but have hobbies. I mean, don't be a blank deaf. Don't be a blank deaf. Don't be a blank personality. Have hobbies. At least some of them should be constructive. That would be my personal advice. Now, last point, what I want to discuss is that sometimes, and in our lives, sometimes it happens so that there are aberrations. Aberrations meaning some kind of thing which will seem to be irregular. For example, suddenly somebody after 12th, there is a gap of 3 years, So the questions of course will be there, why you have done that, what happened during these 3 years, why you did not join graduation immediately after 12th. Some people, there is a change of direction. For example, myself, I did BTech in mechanical from IIT Kharagpur, and after that, while preparing, as I already told you, I enrolled in MA in public administration. So there is a kind of U-turn, and from mechanical engineering to consulting to teaching to ITBP. So this is a zigzag kind of a path. So there is a lot of aberrations. So you must expect questions on these aberrations which are there on your DAF, and you must prepare well, because all these things, of course, it is about you, it is about your decisions, so you already know. But sometimes the choice of words is very, very critical. How you explain is very, very critical. The real reason might actually be something else, and it may be very, very relevant to form that impression about while explaining this aberration. So the whole point is about DAF is that aberration should be properly covered, and there should be a good justification for all those aberrations and other points also. So basically in interview preparation, I always tell this is whatever is in your DAF or resume or CV, every word you should know something about. So while you are preparing for interview, you should just take a printout of your DAF. Every word, imagine all kind of questions which can be asked on that DAF. So that is why DAF is very, very important, and that will help you in your interview preparation as well. So this was basically a video about detailed application form, your resume, your CV, and how while preparing, before even you start your preparation, you need to work on your DAF, your resume, your CV. And this is essentially it is not very specific to UPSC. In fact, it applies to all the jobs. If somebody has a good CV, good resume, and if it has a good personality, then obviously you have a very good chance of clearing that interview, clearing that exam. So I hope this video has been useful, and of course the DAF word is used only in UPSC, maybe in other exams also. But the idea of this video is to inculcate in you that thinking that why this working on this DAF is important, right at the beginning of your career, even before the beginning of your career. So that is why this video. In our times, that kind of this kind of counseling and this kind of information was not available. So I really felt that this topic should be covered in this micro series. Because those who are just starting, those who are very young, I think it will benefit them a lot, because they have the advantage of time and they can work on their CV. So I hope you liked this video, and please subscribe if you have not subscribed. And if you want me to cover specific topics, please comment below, and keep watching these series. And even after that, I'll be doing a lot of videos on career and about exams and about youth and about in general knowledge. So thank you for watching. See you in the next video.